Dr. Sage here. Welcome back to our discussion on bone tissue and the skeletal system. Today's topic, bone formation and development. By the end of this lecture, you should be able to explain the functions of cartilage, list the steps of intramembranous ossification, list the steps of endocoronal ossification, explain the growth activity at the epiphyseal plate, compare and contrast the processes of modeling and remodeling. In the early stages of embryonic development, the embryo skeleton consists of fibrous membranes and hyaline cartilage. By the 6th or 7th week of embryonic life, the actual process of bone development, ossification, begins. There are two ossogenic pathways, intramembranous ossification and endochondral ossification, but bone is the same regardless of the pathway that produces it. Bone is a replacement tissue. That is, it uses a model tissue on which to lay down its mineral matrix. For skeletal development, the most common template is cartilage. During fetal development, a framework is laid down that determines where bones will form. This framework is a flexible, semi-solid matrix produced by chondroblasts and consists of hyaluronic acid, chondroitin sulfate, collagen fibers, and water. As a matrix surrounds and isolates chondroblasts, they are called chondrocytes. Unlike most connective tissues, cartilage is avascular, meaning that it has no blood vessels supplying nutrients and removing metabolic waste. All of these functions are carried on by diffusion through the matrix. This is why damaged cartilage does not repair itself as readily as most tissues do. Throughout fetal development and into childhood growth and development, bone forms on the cartilaginous matrix. By the time a fetus is born, most of the cartilage has been replaced with bone. Some additional cartilage will be replaced throughout childhood, and some cartilage remains in the adult skeleton. During intramembranous ossification, compact and spongy bone develops directly from sheets of mesenchymal or undifferentiated connective tissue. The flat bones of the face, most of the cranial bones, and the clavicles are formed via intramembranous ossification. The process begins when mesenchymal cells in the embryonic skeleton gather together and begin to differentiate into specialized cells. Some of these cells will differentiate into capillaries, while others will become osteogenic cells and then osteoblasts. Although they will ultimately be spread out by the formation of bone tissue, early osteoblasts appear in a cluster called an ossification center. The osteoblasts secrete osteoid, uncalcified matrix, which calcifies or hardens within a few days as mineral salts are deposited on it, thereby entrapping the osteoblasts within. Once entrapped, the osteoblasts become osteocytes. As osteoblasts transform into osteocytes, osteogenic cells in the surrounding connective tissue differentiate into new osteoblasts. Osteoid, unmineralized bone matrix, secreted around the capillaries results in a trabecular matrix, while osteoblasts on the surface of the spongy bone become the periosteum. The periosteum then creates a protective layer of compact bone superficial to the trabecular bone. The trabecular bone crowds nearby blood vessels, which eventually condense into red marrow. Intramembranous ossification begins in utero during fetal development and continues on into adolescence. At birth, the skull and clavicles are not fully ossified, nor are the sutures of the skull closed. This allows the skull and shoulders to deform during passage through the birth canal. The last bones to ossify via intramembranous ossification are the flat bones of the face, which reach their adult size at the end of the adolescent growth spurt. In endochondrital ossification, bone develops by replacing hyaline cartilage. Cartilage does not become bone. Instead, cartilage serves as a template to be completely replaced by new bone. Endochondral ossification takes much longer than intramembranous ossification. Bones at the base of the skull and long bones form via endochondral ossification. In a long bone, for example, at about 6 to 8 weeks after conception, some of the mesenchymal cells differentiate into chondrocytes, cartilage cells, that form the cartilaginous skeletal precursor of the bone. Soon after the perichondrium, a membrane that covers the cartilage appears. As more matrix is produced, the chondrocytes in the center of the cartilaginous model grow in size. As the matrix calcifies, nutrients can no longer reach the chondrocytes. This results in their death and the disintegration of the surrounding cartilage. Blood vessels invade the resulting spaces, not only enlarging the cavities but also carrying osteogenic cells with them, many of which will become osteoblasts. These enlarging spaces eventually combine to become the medullary cavity. As the cartilage grows, capillaries penetrate it. This penetration initiates the transformation of the perichondrium into the bone-producing periosteum. Here, the osteoblasts form a periosteal collar of compact bone around the cartilage of the diaphysis. By the second or third month of fetal life, bone cell development and ossification ramps up and creates a primary ossification center. a region deep in the periosteal collar where ossification begins. While these deep changes are occurring, chondrocytes and cartilage continue to grow at the ends of the bone, the future epiphyses, which increase the bone's length at the same time the bone is replacing cartilage in the diaphyses. By the time the fetal skeleton is fully formed, cartilage only remains at the joint surface as articular cartilage and between the diaphysis and epiphysis as an epiphyseal plate, the latter of which is responsible for the longitudinal growth of bones. After birth, this same sequence of events, matrix mineralization, death of chondrocytes, invasion of blood vessels from the periosteum, and seeding with osteogenic cells that become osteoblasts, occurs in the epiphyseal region, and each of these centers of activity is referred to as a secondary ossification center. The epiphyseal plate is the area of growth in a long bone. It is a layer of hyaline cartilage where ossification occurs in immature bones. On the epiphyseal side of the epiphyseal plate, cartilage is formed. On the diaphyseal side, cartilage is ossified, and the diaphysis grows in length. The epiphyseal plate is composed of 4 zones of cells and activity. The reserve zone is the region closest to the epiphyseal zone at the plate and contains small chondrocytes within the matrix. These chondrocytes do not participate in bone growth but secure the epiphyseal plate to the osseous tissue of the epiphysis. The proliferative zone is the next layer toward the diaphysis and contains stacks of slightly larger chondrocytes. It makes new chondrocytes via mitosis to replace those that die at the diaphyseal end of the plate. Chondrocytes in the next layer, the zone of maturation and hypertrophy, are older and larger than those in the proliferative zone. The more mature cells are situated closer to the diaphyseal end of the plate. The longitudinal growth of bone is a result of cellular division in the proliferative zone and the maturation of cells in the zone of maturation and hypertrophy. Most of the chondrocytes in the zone of calcified matrix, the zone closest to the diaphysis, are dead because the matrix around them has calcified. Capillaries and osteoblasts from the diaphysis penetrate this zone, and the osteoblasts secrete bone tissue on the remaining calcified cartilage. Thus, the zone of calcified matrix connects the epiphyseal plate to the diaphysis. A bone grows in length when osseous tissue is added to the diaphysis. Bones continue to grow in length until early adulthood. The rate of growth is controlled by hormones, which will be discussed later. When the chondrocytes in the epiphyseal plate cease their proliferation and bone replaces cartilage, longitudinal growth stops. All that remains of the epiphyseal plate is the epiphyseal line. While bones are increasing in length, they are also increasing in diameter. Growth in diameter can continue even after longitudinal growth ceases. This is called appositional growth. Osteoclasts reabsorb old bone that lines the medullary cavity, while osteoblasts, via intramembranous ossification, produce new bone tissue beneath the periosteum. The erosion of old bone along the medullary cavity and the deposition of new bone beneath the periosteum not only increases the diameter of the diaphysis, but also increases the diameter of the medullary cavity. The process in which matrix is reabsorbed on one surface of a bone and deposited on another is known as bone modeling. Modeling primarily takes place during a bone's growth. However, in adult life, bone undergoes remodeling, in which reabsorption of old or damaged bone takes place on the same surface where osteoblasts lay new bone to replace that which is reabsorbed. Injury, exercise, and other activities lead to remodeling. But even without injury or exercise, about 5 to 10% of the skeleton is remodeled annually just by destroying old bone and renewing it with fresh bone. This has been your overview of bone formation and development. Next time we'll continue our discussion on bone tissue in the skeletal system. Until next time, this has been Dr. Sage.